41, you're going toward the airport, popular one. If you walk into the restaurant, they actually say the name of the restaurant. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? They say, welcome to Moe's. Y'all didn't get it. When you go to this place called Moe's, and I don't know, you can be whatever size, you can have a few extra pounds, you can have 8 for months, and you will be filled. They're known for their gigantic burritos. Picking up on that topic, I read this article on Time magazine last year in 2018, July 4th, Nathan's hot dog contest up in New York City. The winner was a guy named Joey Chestnut. He went by Jaws. And Jaws, he won. And you know how many hot dogs he ate in 10 minutes? 74 hot dogs. In fact, they had to do a recount, I heard. I didn't even want to see pictures of the recount to make sure they really did. Skip that slide. Just kidding. I didn't have a slide for that. But I bet Joey or Jaws was full. But do you think he was satisfied? I think there's a difference between being full and being satisfied. We all know what it's like. We wake up in the middle of the night, and we walk to our fridge. We're still a little hungry. We go to the fridge, and you take out that extra slice of pizza, right? You put it in the microwave, or if you're in college, you just eat it cold. Or if you got a sweet tooth, you go in the fridge and you eat a scoop of ice cream just with a spoon when no one's looking. One bite. I tell you all my bad habits one Sunday. Kate's not here. Turn off the recording. But you do this, and then you go to bed and you might be full, but once again, are you satisfied? I think there's a difference. I think we think they might be the same, but they're a little different. We're tempted to think being satisfied means you have to be full. But yet, if you're full, that doesn't always mean that you're satisfied. Think about that. Just because you're full, that doesn't mean you're satisfied. I've heard someone ask J.D. Rockefeller, how much money do you need to be is enough? And he said, just a little bit more. Just take a minute and think about how our lives are so full. Think of noise. Where do you go and there's not noise, right? In your car, there's radios. When you go home, there's news. Or at least ESPN, there's shows going on. Wherever you go to a restaurant, sometimes there's music going on in there. I wonder maybe if we're almost afraid of silence. That's another sermon. But think about how full our lives of social media. I've seen couples go out to dinner. You've seen this, and they just stare at the phone. John, if you hit the next slide, I think it's kind of silly, but I've seen visiting grandma, and everyone's just staring at their phone. Our lives are so full of social media. And think of stuff. We talked about this during our stewardship campaign, how our lives are so full of stuff. I think when I went from undergrad to graduate school in St. Louis, I had like a carload of stuff. Then when I went from grad school to my first church, I had maybe like a truck, and my cousin drove down with me too, a pickup truck. And then when I went from 2 churches later down here to Florida, I had like the biggest U-Haul you could get, right? You just accumulate. You think you have to have more. Your house needs to be full. Your lives need to be full. But does this always mean that you're satisfied? Because you always still need something more in the closet, right? While today's time might be extreme, I think the drive to feel full characterized Jesus' time as well. It's kind of a little bit the backdrop of this story. I'm the bread of life. Remember, Jesus said these words in response to a crowd that was following him around the Sea of Galilee. The day before, Jesus just multiplied fish and bread. If you take a look at the NIV translation, and the NIV translation, by the way, you see this story in all the Gospels, but in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the storyteller says they ate and they were satisfied. But in John's Gospel, John says they ate and they were full. And then he goes on and he talks about this I am story, about how Jesus says he's the I am. And if you remember, if you've ever studied the book of John, John usually does deeper things. He's the theologian of the group. He's going to a deeper level than the other folks. I wonder if John, he was saying that they were only full because he's pointing to something else with Jesus. Remember, John's whole point is so you and I recognize that God is in that person, Jesus. In the very end of John chapter 20, I think it's verse 31, John writes, "But these things are written so you'll believe that Jesus is the Christ, God's Son, and that believing you will have life in his name." See, I think by John leaving out that they were satisfied, he was pointing to something else. That bread can't just satisfy. That physical bread just can't satisfy you. Something or someone else can only do that. But to get to that point, we need to first realize we need to know something about bread. Now tell me, who all went to a restaurant this past week? Anybody? Last month, anybody go to a restaurant? Most of us last month we've been to a restaurant. Anybody get all dressed up? You drove your car to your favorite restaurant, you sat down, the waitress came over, you said, "I like a loaf of bread." No, they look at you like you're nuts. Maybe if you're at the Olive Garden, you get away with that. But still, no, you can't just say, "I like a loaf of bread." You can't, but what we forget though, a bread, it's just like a side item for us. But in Jesus' day, that's what they ate. The bread and water, or some say bread and wine. That was your daily meal, bread and wine. Now, maybe every once in a while you sprinkle in some fish, sprinkle in some meat, but you ultimately lived off of physical bread, and then you lived off of wine or water. Now, getting back to our scripture, remember, people were searching out for Jesus. And you might think that Jesus would be encouraged by people looking for him. Thousands of people searching for him. But Jesus knew what they were up to. They were looking for another handout, want some more food, maybe see another miracle. They want a fuller life again. But Jesus moves from their need and our need of hunger to illustrate a hunger that's much deeper. So Jesus says, "I'm the bread of life, and if you eat of me, you will never go hungry or be thirsty." I like what Max Lucado writes about this. John, if you hit the slide. What bread is to hunger, Jesus claims to be for our soul. What bread is to hunger, Jesus claims to be for our soul. He'd go on to say, travel to almost any country and sit at any restaurant, and they'll serve you bread. Bread is a staple. If the poor have nothing, they have bread. If the rich have everything, they still have bread. Bread is not a regional food, nor a national dish. No country claims to be the exclusive source of bread. It may be in the form of a tortilla in Mexico or a bagel in New York, but bread's available everywhere. And so is Christ. He's not bound by our boundaries. No country claims him. No region owns him. No nation monopolizes him. He is everywhere at the same time, universally available. Bread is eaten daily. Some fruits are available only in season. Some drinks are made only at holidays. But not so with bread, and not so with Jesus. He should be brought to our table every day. We let him nourish our hearts, not just in certain months or in special events, but daily. Bread's served in many forms. It's toasted, jellied, buttered, flattened, and grilled. It can be on a sandwich, sweet roll, hot dog bun, croissant, dinner roll. Bread can meet many needs, and so can Jesus. He adapts himself to meet our needs. He has a word for the lonely, as well as for the popular. He has help for the physically ill and the emotionally ill. If your vision is clear, he can help you. If your vision is cloudy, he can help you. Jesus can meet each need. In short, it's Jesus who satisfies our soul's deepest yearning. You remember when the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness, God provided for them manna each day, but there was one little caveat. Do you remember what that was? You could only take a certain amount for just that day. You had to trust that God would provide for the next day. And for us too, we have to be able to trust that Jesus provides for each day. That Jesus is going to take care of us today. and that Jesus will provide and satisfy us tomorrow as well. Some of you might be familiar with the Christian apologetic C.S. Lewis. He once said, "I sometimes wonder whether all pleasures are not substitutes for joy." I wonder whether all pleasures are not substitutes for joy. By Jesus saying, "I am the bread of life," he's in fact kind of telling us to stop spending your time wasting around just filling up your schedule of pointless things. It's through me that you're going to find real peace, real contentment, real life, and real meaning, not through all this other stuff. No matter what the circumstances you're going through, I can fill you, but I can also satisfy you. So what might be some ways that we can discover Jesus as the source of our satisfaction? Now, I'm sure the first one, this isn't popular, but it's linked. So I have to throw the pitch out there at least. It's fasting. We've all heard of fasting, kind of maybe giving up a meal, maybe giving up certain foods, something kind of you rely on, you depend on. It's a way we kind of give that up to kind of realize that it's not this food or it's not this drink that I depend on, but ultimately it's Jesus that I depend on. Some people give up things like social media maybe, give up Facebook, but it's not just giving up Facebook to give it up. Maybe it's giving it up to actually spend time with your real friends, having real conversations, maybe even actually like calling them on the phone or hanging out with them and just throwing something on the Facebook wall. Now, there's always some jokester during Lent who says, "Well, I'll give up broccoli and exercise." That's not the point of fasting. You give up something you kind of depend on, and you realize what you really rely on and depend on is Christ and Christ alone. A second way to kind of know Jesus' satisfaction is to learn and accept the things that God gives us. That's a hard one, to learn to accept the things that God gives us. I know growing up, Kay and I were bad at this, but growing up, at least my parents, whatever was at the table is what you ate. Anybody like that? I don't remember my parents ever saying, "Hey, honey, what would you like for dinner?" Or "Sweetheart," or "Hey, kid, get up, son, what do you want?" No, there was no options. We ate whatever mom or dad or our aunt had for Christmas. That's what she ate. We didn't have all the options. And, we might think options is nice, but that's not true satisfaction. And think about with God, so many blessings that God puts on our lives right here. And we just can't see it. We take it for granted. We're thinking maybe we want something else or need something else, but God's blessed us. And this kind of leads to a third point, is to find satisfaction, is to focus on making others full and not ourselves. Who else better to illustrate that than Jesus himself, who came not to be served, but to serve others? No matter how much we fill our lives, fill our schedules, fill our homes, there's nothing I think can satisfy us, can complete us, than actually doing something good for someone else. Try it. You guys already do it, but continue to do it. That's what brings true satisfaction. It's not just filling our own stomachs, not only thinking about ourselves, but serving others. It's amazing how life-giving that is. So I'm going to lead you with this. Are you satisfied? Are you just trying to get full? Welcome to Lent. Let's focus our eyes on Jesus. Amen. At this time,